Now we're going to talk about aspect ratio. And simply put, aspect ratio is the sizing of the frame of your image. Now, aspect ratio is important because it completely changes the viewing experience of what you're looking at. When you're watching television or a movie, this is a horizontal aspect ratio that's generally 16 by 9, similar to a laptop or a computer. When you're scrolling vertically on your phone, on Instagram or TikTok, this is a 9 by 16 vertical aspect ratio, and each ratio is really overall changing the viewing experience. So what we're going to get into now is how to change our aspect ratios in MidJourney and when to decide what kind of ratio to use. So let's hop into it. So let's go ahead and start with this prompt. We want an Airbus A380, which is a newer airliner, on a wet tarmac with reflections at dusk, and for it to be photorealistic. Now, if I put in this prompt, MidJourney is gonna always default to a square 1:1 aspect ratio, which for some images is totally fine. For example, this is a sphere that is also basically a 1:1 ratio itself. If it was an oval or a different shape, it would be a different aspect ratio. Now, for something that's large and wide, this is not an ideal aspect ratio for our subject or the main content of our image. So to change that, what we're going to do is add a new part to our prompt that's going to alter the aspect ratio. We're going to do our prompt, and now at the end of the prompt, I'm going to put in AR 16 by 9. That's going to tell MidJourney to not default to its 1:1 aspect ratio. Let's go ahead and put that in. And now I'm also going to do a completely vertical aspect ratio, which instead of 16 by 9, we're going to do 9 by 16. And we're going to see how that affects our final image. And while that's rendering, you can already see that for something that's wide and large, it's going to be so much more aesthetically pleasing with a wider and larger aspect ratio that works for horizontal framing. If we take a look at our 9 by 16 vertical ratio, you can tell that no professional photographer would go and shoot it this way. And that's something to kind of keep in mind, that you're kind of using MidJourney to be your own genie in a bottle photographer that can just shoot and create a photo about anything. And it's up to you to give it the creative input and send it in the right direction to create an aesthetically pleasing image. So it's not that these are terrible images. We're still getting the subject that we want with the background, with the wet tarmac that has the reflection, but a professional photographer would not make this kind of creative decision. So keep in mind, if you're shooting a subject matter that, let's say, is vertical, like maybe a portrait of a person or a close-up product shot, which let's actually go ahead and do this. I'm gonna go /imagine, and let's say a product photo shoot of a full soda can, photorealistic, and we're gonna do the 9 by 16 vertical aspect ratio. And there we have something that would fit really nicely in a vertical aspect ratio. The other thing to keep in mind is when you're creating your art or your photography, where is your viewer going to be looking at it? Are they going to be looking at it vertically on their phone? Are they going to be looking at it horizontally on a laptop? This is something to keep in mind of how is the content that you're creating being consumed by the end user. So the main takeaway here is that you are the photographer using MidJourney as your own creative medium, and you are making these artistic choices on how the end product is going to look. And one of those questions you need to ask yourself is, who is your end user that is going to be viewing your photography?